The advertisement had said delicate. The woman stepping down from the supply wagon was anything but. Callum Reed stood in the snow outside his timber cabin and stared at her, broad-shouldered, thick-armed, moving with the kind of solid purpose that suggested she had hauled more than luggage in her lifetime. She wore a wool coat that strained across her back and a hat that looked like it had survived a war. Behind her, 6 children watched from the cabin windows with their noses pressed to the glass like prisoners waiting for a verdict. "You Callum Reed?" she asked. Her voice was low and steady, not asking permission. "I am," he said slowly. "Good. I'm Mabel Croft. You sent for a cook. I'm here to cook." She lifted 2 heavy trunks from the wagon bed like they weighed nothing, set them in the snow, and paid the driver without looking back at Callum. The wagon rolled away. She stood there with her luggage and her certainty, waiting. Callum opened his mouth, closed it. The agency letter had been very specific. A delicate woman of refinement, suitable for a household with young children. This woman looked like she could split logs and shoe horses before breakfast. "There's been a mistake," he said finally. Mabel looked at him with eyes the color of winter sky. "What kind of mistake?" "I requested someone different." "Different how?" He gestured vaguely, unable to find words that wouldn't sound worse out loud. She understood anyway. Her mouth tightened. "You wanted someone smaller, quieter, someone who looked like she needed protecting." She picked up both trunks again. "Well, you got me instead. And those children in there look hungry. So we can stand out here arguing about what you ordered, or you can show me the kitchen and let me do what I came here to do." Before he could answer, the cabin door flew open. A girl of about 9, Lily, his oldest, came running out barefoot in the snow. "Are you the cook? Are you really staying?" Mabel set the trunks down and knelt so she was eye level with the child. "I am if your father lets me." Lily turned to Callum with an expression that could have melted iron. "Papa, we haven't had a real meal in 3 weeks. Please." If this story is already pulling at something in you, I'd be grateful if you hit subscribe. We've got a long way to go, and I don't want you to miss what happens next. Drop the name of your city in the comments so I can see how far this one travels. Because what Callum didn't know yet was that Mabel Croft wasn't just strong with her hands. She was about to feed those children in ways that had nothing to do with food. Callum Reed had become a widower 8 months earlier when influenza took his wife Anna in the span of 4 terrible days. She left him with 6 children ranging from 9 years old down to 18 months, a timber claim 40 miles from the nearest town, and absolutely no idea how to do any of the things she had made look easy. He had tried. God knew he had tried. But cooking for 6 children while managing a lumber operation and keeping a baby alive was like trying to hold water in a basket. Everything leaked through. The agency in Laramie had promised to send someone suitable, a refined woman who could manage a household and teach the children manners and cook the kind of meals Anna used to make. Callum had written back immediately, paid the fee, and waited 6 weeks for someone to arrive. This was not what he had pictured. But Lily was right. The children were hungry. He could see it in their faces pressed against the window. Thomas, 7, Samuel, 5, Rosie, 3, and the twins, Eli and Grace, barely past their first birthday. They had been eating burned porridge and hard bread for so long they had stopped complaining about it. "Kitchen's inside," Callum said finally. "But we need to discuss terms." "After I feed them," Mabel said. "Terms can wait. Hunger can't." She walked past him into the cabin. The children scattered like birds, then slowly crept back as Mabel surveyed the kitchen with the focus of a general assessing a battlefield. The stove was cold. Dishes were piled in the basin. The larder door hung crooked on its hinges. "How long since this stove was cleaned?" she asked. "I don't know," Callum admitted. "Weeks, maybe longer." Mabel rolled up her sleeves. Her forearms were thick, muscled, scarred from old burns. "All right then. You children, what are your names?" They introduced themselves in shy, halting voices. Mabel listened to each one, repeated their names back to make sure she had them right, then pointed at Thomas. "You, can you carry firewood?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. I need this stove hot. Samuel, you're on water duty. Lily, find me every egg in this house. The rest of you, stay out of the way and watch." Within 20 minutes, the stove was roaring. Within an hour, the kitchen smelled like something close to heaven. Fried potatoes with onions, scrambled eggs with butter, thick slices of bread toasted dark and spread with preserves. Mabel worked with an efficiency that suggested she had fed crowds before. Her hands moved fast and sure. Nothing wasted, nothing dropped. She set plates on the table. The children stared at the food like they couldn't quite believe it was real. "Well," Mabel said, "it's not going to eat itself." They fell on it like wolves. Callum watched from the doorway as his children ate real food for the first time in weeks. Rosie made sounds of pleasure with every bite. The twins grabbed fistfuls of egg and shoved them into their mouths. Even Lily, who had been trying so hard to be grown up and responsible, ate with the desperate focus of someone who had forgotten what full felt like. Mabel filled a plate and brought it to Callum. "You too." He took it, sat, ate. The potatoes were crispy on the outside, soft in the middle, seasoned with something that tasted like hope. The eggs were perfect. The bread was better than anything he remembered Anna making, and that thought made him feel guilty and grateful at the same time. When the children finished, Mabel collected the plates without ceremony. "Thomas, Samuel, help me with these dishes. Lily, those babies need cleaning. Papa," she looked at Callum, "we should talk." They stepped outside. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the snow pink and gold. Mabel stood with her arms crossed, her breath making clouds in the cold air. "I know I'm not what you expected," she said. "The agency told me you wanted someone refined, someone delicate. I'm neither of those things. I'm a farm girl from Nebraska who spent 15 years cooking for threshing crews and cattle drives. I'm strong because I had to be. I'm loud because quiet women don't get heard. And I showed up here because the agency said you had 6 children who needed feeding, and I'm good at that." She met his eyes. "So here's my terms. I'll cook. I'll clean. I'll care for those children like they're my own. I'll work harder than anyone you could have hired. But I won't apologize for how I look, or how I work, or for being too much woman for your delicate sensibilities. Take it or leave it." Callum was quiet for a long moment. Inside, he could hear Lily singing to the twins. It was the first time he'd heard her sing since Anna died. "You can stay," he said. Mabel nodded once. "Good. Now show me where I'm sleeping and then stay out of my kitchen." The next morning, Callum woke to the smell of bacon, coffee, and fresh biscuits. He came downstairs to find the kitchen transformed, clean, organized, functional. Mabel stood at the stove flipping flapjacks with one hand, while bouncing baby Grace on her hip with the other. The older children sat at the table already eating, their faces bright in a way he hadn't seen in months. "Morning," Mabel said without turning around. "Coffee's on the table. Don't expect me to serve you. I've got 6 others to feed first." He poured his own coffee and watched her work. She moved through the kitchen like she'd been there for years, not hours. She knew where everything was because she had reorganized it all in the night while he slept. The children gravitated to her like she was the sun. Even the twins, who had been fussy and difficult since Anna died, settled in her presence. Over the next week, a rhythm established itself. Callum worked the timber claim from dawn until dark. Mabel ran the household with the kind of competence that made it look effortless, even though he knew it wasn't. She cooked 3 meals a day, real meals with vegetables and meat and bread that rose properly. She taught Lily how to darn socks and fold laundry. She showed Thomas how to split kindling safely. She sang to the little ones and told stories that made them laugh. And she worked. God, how she worked. Callum came home one evening to find her on the roof patching a leak. Another day, she had reorganized the entire woodshed and chopped enough firewood to last a month. She repaired the larder door, fixed the broken chair, and scrubbed the cabin floors until they shone. The children adored her. Within 3 days, Rosie was calling her Mabel Mama. Within a week, the twins crawled to her first thing every morning. Thomas followed her around, asking questions about everything. Samuel brought her flowers he picked from the winter-dead garden. And Lily started smiling again. But Callum kept his distance. He was polite, respectful, careful. He couldn't stop comparing her to Anna. Anna had been small, soft-spoken, gentle. Mabel was none of those things. Anna had moved through the house like a breeze. Mabel moved like a force of nature. It wasn't bad, it was just different, and different felt like betrayal. 2 weeks after she arrived, Callum rode into Bear Creek Ridge for supplies. He stopped at the general store where a man named Dutch Carver, a rancher with more land than sense, was holding court. "Reed," Dutch said, grinning. "Heard you finally got yourself a housekeeper." "I did," Callum said carefully. "Also heard she's not exactly what you ordered." Dutch laughed. "My wife saw her at the supply station. Said she looked like she could wrestle a bear and win." A few other men laughed. Callum's hands tightened on the counter. "I mean, no judgment," Dutch continued. "But you sent for a delicate cook and got a lumberjack in a dress. That's gotta sting." "She cooks fine," Callum said flatly. Sure, but come on. 6 kids need a woman's touch. Someone soft. Someone who knows how to be a mother. Not someone who looks like she should be out there swinging an axe with you." The store went quiet. Callum turned slowly to face Dutch. "You finished?" Dutch's grin faltered. "Just making conversation." "Then let me add to it." Callum stepped closer. "Mabel Croft showed up at my door 2 weeks ago. In that time, she's fed my children better than they've eaten since their mother died. She's repaired things I didn't even know were broken. She's kept the house warmer, cleaner, and more organized than it's been in 8 months. And most importantly, my children are happy again." He looked around the room. "So if you or anyone else has something to say about the way she looks or the way she works, you can say it to me directly. But I'll tell you right now, that woman is worth 10 of any delicate cook the agency could have sent. She's exactly what we needed, and I won't hear otherwise." He paid for his supplies and left. When he got home, the children were in the yard building a snowman. Mabel was supervising from the porch, wrapped in a thick shawl, her breath steaming in the cold. She looked up when he approached. "How was town?" she asked. "Fine." He hesitated. "There was talk." "There always is." She didn't seem surprised. "Let me guess. Dutch Carver? How'd you know?" "Men like him are the same everywhere. They see a woman who doesn't fit their picture of what a woman should be, and they have to say something about it." She shrugged. "I stopped caring what men like that think about 15 years ago." "Well, I told him he was wrong," Callum said. Mabel looked at him sharply. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He set the supplies down. "You've done more for this family in 2 weeks than I managed in 8 months. The children love you. This house runs because of you. And anyone who can't see that is a fool." Something shifted in her expression. "You mean that?" "I do." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Thank you." That night, after the children were asleep, Callum found Mabel in the kitchen, kneading bread dough for the next day. Her sleeves were rolled up, her arms dusted with flour. She worked with the same steady rhythm she brought to everything. No wasted motion, no hesitation. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Go ahead." "Why'd you take this job? The agency must have had other positions, easier ones, closer to civilization." Mabel shaped the dough into a ball and set it in a bowl to rise. "You want the truth?" "Always." "Because they told me you had 6 children under 10 and no wife. And I know what that means. I grew up in a house like that. My mother died when I was 8. My father tried, but he couldn't do it alone. We went hungry more often than we should have. We wore clothes that didn't fit. We grew up too fast because no one was there to let us be children." She wiped her hands on her apron. "When I read your letter, I saw those kids in my mind. And I thought, I can help them. I know how to do this, so I took the job. Even though I knew you'd be disappointed when I showed up. Even though I knew people would talk." "You knew I wanted someone different," Callum said quietly. "Everyone wants someone different than me," Mabel said. "I'm used to it." "I was wrong," Callum said. The words came out rough. "You're not different in a bad way. You're different in the way we needed. Anna was wonderful, but she's gone. And you're here. And you're exactly what this family needs right now." Mabel's eyes were bright. "You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be kind. I'm saying it because it's true." He stepped closer. "My children are thriving because of you. This house is a home again because of you. And He stopped, started again. "I'm grateful. More than I know how to say." She looked at him for a long moment. "Your wife was a lucky woman." No, Callum said. I was the lucky one. And if I'm honest, I'm starting to feel lucky again. The next Sunday, Callum loaded all 6 children and Mabel into the wagon and drove to Bear Creek Ridge for church. It was the first time he'd brought the whole family to town since Anna's funeral. People stared when they arrived, at Callum, at the children, at Mabel sitting beside him in a clean dress with her hair pinned up. Dutch Carver was there with his wife. He saw them and smirked. After the service, people gathered outside. Dutch made his way over, his wife trailing behind. "Reed," he said, "didn't expect to see you. Or your housekeeper." "Mabel's family," Callum said evenly. "So we go where families go." Dutch's wife, a thin, pinched woman named Constance, looked Mabel up and down. "My, you're certainly sturdy, aren't you?" Before Mabel could respond, Lily stepped forward. "Miss Mabel is the best cook in Wyoming," she said loudly. "And she fixed our whole house, and she tells the best stories, and she makes the babies laugh every day." Thomas nodded fiercely. "She taught me how to chop wood." "And she sings," Rosie added. Samuel, who rarely spoke to strangers, looked at Constance Carver with serious eyes. "She's better than anyone." The crowd had gone quiet. Callum felt something warm expand in his chest. "My children are right," he said. "Mabel came to us when we needed help most. She's fed us, cared for us, and held this family together. She works harder than any 3 people I know, and she's done it all without complaint, without praise, and without asking for anything in return." He looked at Dutch and Constance. "So if either of you, or anyone else here, has something to say about her, say it now. Because I want you to know exactly where I stand." No one spoke. "Good," Callum said. He offered Mabel his arm. "Let's go home." They rode back in comfortable silence. The children sang songs in the back of the wagon. The sun was bright on the snow. Halfway home, Mabel spoke. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Callum said. "Those people needed to know. But more importantly, you needed to know."
Know what?
"That you're not just the housekeeper here. You're family, and family protects each other." Mabel's voice was thick. "I haven't been part of a family in a long time." "You are now," Callum said. He reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. 6 months later, on a Sunday morning in June, Mabel stood in the kitchen making breakfast while Callum sat at the table with baby Grace on his lap. The other children were outside chasing chickens and laughing loud enough to wake the dead. Callum watched Mabel move around the kitchen, confident, capable, exactly where she belonged. She had gained weight since winter, her face fuller and softer. She smiled more, laughed easier. The hard edges she'd arrived with had softened into something warmer. "Mabel," he said. "Hmm?" She flipped a pancake without looking. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous habit," he smiled. "I want to ask you something, but I need you to know I'm asking because I want to, not because I need to." She turned to look at him. "What is it?" "Marry me." The spatula clattered to the floor. Grace giggled. "What?" Mabel whispered. Callum stood, settling Grace on his hip. "I love you. The children love you. This house is a home because you're in it. And I don't want you here as the housekeeper or the cook or even as family. I want you here as my wife." "Callum, I know I'm not offering much. I'm still grieving Anna. I've got 6 children and a timber claim and not much else. But I can promise you this. I will never take you for granted. I will never make you feel less than you are. And I will spend every day making sure you know that you are worth everything." Mabel's eyes were streaming. "I'm not delicate. I'm not refined. You're strong," Callum said. "You're capable. You're exactly who I need. Exactly who we need. And I don't want delicate. I want you." She crossed the kitchen and kissed him. Grace squealed with delight between them.
Yes,
Mabel said when she pulled back.
yes, I'll marry you.
The children burst through the door at that exact moment. Lily saw them and shrieked. "Are you getting married? Are you staying forever?" "Forever," Mabel said, laughing and crying at the same time. The children mobbed her, all 6 of them, shouting and hugging and celebrating like it was Christmas. Callum stood back and watched his family, his whole, complete family, and felt something he hadn't felt since Anna died. Peace. That night, after the children were finally asleep, Callum and Mabel sat on the porch watching the stars. She leaned against him, solid and warm and real. "You know what's funny?" she said. "What?" "You sent for a delicate cook, someone refined and proper, someone who fit the picture in your head." "And instead I got you," Callum said. "And instead you got me," she agreed. "A woman too big, too loud, too strong, everything you didn't want." He turned her face toward his. "Everything I needed," he corrected. "Don't ever think otherwise." She smiled. "I won't." And she never did. Because Mabel Croft had spent her whole life being told she was too much. Too big. Too strong. Too unrefined. And then she walked into a house full of hungry children and a grieving man, and she became exactly enough. Not because she changed, because they finally saw her.